Hey guys!
Hello.
Welcome to.
To navigate.
We need to come up with like a proper intro.
I know, like a jingle or
this.
something. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, we announced or told you that we have now basically rebranded the series to Navigate. Basically meaning the two of us are navigating through life, through relationship, through family, work, and everything. And we want to share this with you. So this is kind of the goal. We started this end of last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And gotten some really good feedback and great responses so far. So we really want to continue this and actually grow this much further.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of all of this, really, before we really get into today's topic, is ultimately to make sure we hear from you what interests you specifically, so we can address those topics, directly and share with you basically our thought process behind them.
We've been married now for 6 years,
Yeah.
right? And we're not experts on marriage or relationship or parenting or anything.
Correct.
But our experience will always be ours.
Yeah.
And, it's worth sharing if there's anybody interested. So if there's
Correct.
any topics within this area that you believe we can share with you, or you'd like to hear about our personal experience, do
let us
leave
know.
a comment below and we will address it. Let's get into the juicy
For
bit of
today.
this video. Today is a very juicy topic about in-laws, okay? And I know, listen, in-laws is a very, very tricky subject to address. I would actually like to hear your opinion first. Bear in mind, we have not prior discussed this.
We have not.
Let's just hope we both don't
Indeed.
say anything that kind of
And in a fight.
Before I got married, okay, I had watched this video by Jennifer Lopez and someone about the mother-in-law from hell.
Okay.
Basically. I'd watched that video, was terrified. Is this what mothers-in-law are like? But I personally, obviously knowing David and meeting his family way before we got married, I came with a different mindset, and they were very receptive of my joining the family. So I would say, as a disclaimer, that my experience didn't go the same as the movie that I had watched. That being said, I do have a few experiences as well as stories that I've heard, and most recently one that's very closely linked to me, and it really did get me thinking about the expectations of in-laws. And it's a real thing, right? I got thinking, and I was saying to David, is it really fair or realistic that two people fall in love for whatever reason and suddenly expect to merge two families that have two completely different lifestyles? So an example would be me, who is Nigerian. I was raised Nigerian, just happened to school in England. David, German, raised German, happened to school in England. So there's my Nigerian family who are still in Nigeria. There's David's German family who are still in Germany, and there's both of us who have connected on a different level. There's so many interests that overlap. All of a sudden we fall in love, we get married, and then we expect that the Nigerian family and German family should all of a sudden become best friends. Or expectations of me as the Nigerian in-law that I might not be able to meet, or David being the German in-law and he might not be able to meet it. So it really got us thinking. So first things first, if you're watching, pause, leave a comment below and tell us, do you think it is fair to expect that two families from completely different backgrounds should all of a sudden join in holy matrimony and become best friends?
Well, let's also maybe put a disclaimer in there. I mean, in-laws, we don't just mean necessarily if you're married or so, right? I mean, this could even be in the case of you in a relationship, maybe a long-term relationship or not. But I think the interesting part is really generally, whoever your partner is, kind of the experience with that family, either between yourself and the family. So really sort of your mother or father, potentially mother or father-in-law. But also between the actual parents themselves, I think. So this is kind of what we're trying to talk about. So you don't have to be married to necessarily relate to this, right?
Yeah.
But do let us know if you have some thoughts around this as well. That would be very interesting to see.
The one example that would have inspired us to have this conversation is about a close friend of mine whose sibling, her brother, now has a girlfriend. And although they're not married, he's expressed his interest in marrying her. He said that to his family. I think her family knows. So they're pretty much just waiting for an engagement. But at the moment, they're still dating.
Yeah.
And so, I suppose over the Christmas, she was in the same city as his family. And the parents got upset that his girlfriend didn't spend enough time with them. The parents' response was, well, you know the way things are done in this family. So you should obviously tell your girlfriend
right, that's how she has to
get information, basically. So obviously that led to the parents being upset. They, didn't respond to her messages anymore, sort of like treating her with a cold shoulder. That obviously annoyed their son. Like, why would you be treating my girlfriend that way? And then it led to this family meeting about expectations, yada, yada, yada. And my friend, who is the sibling, was basically sharing the story with me. And I, kind of could draw from my own experience, gave her some advice. But it really, really inspired me to have this topic about in-laws and expectations. And I suppose the reaction of parents in a way that doesn't necessarily favor them when their kids get married. You give me your view, and I suppose I can share from experience as well my thoughts on this.
I think, like with so many things, a lot of it is also down to kind of being quite clear and open about this. I mean, in this particular case, I obviously, Adanna shared this with me. We talked about this particular case briefly, of course. But in the case of, let's say, the guy's family being so kind of keen on spending time together, and it's a very tradition around Christmas and New Year's to spend time together, I mean, you would hope or think that he would have communicated to her, hey, look, this is what we're going to do, this holiday, it'll be great. My parents usually we do this thing on that day, or we're going to have that. Would you be able to come over? I would love to have you there and there, right? And then communicate to the parents, hey, my girlfriend can come here and there. And then if she says, oh, sorry, but I have my own commitments,
exactly.
or, then it should be clear. This one sounded to me a little bit like this wasn't clearly communicated, like where the parents wanted her to join. And then also maybe between the two, like, okay, him making it clear to her, like, okay, this is something we have for this family tradition. It would be great if you can join us here. Do you get my point? Like, it seems like they then ultimately ended up getting disappointed or annoyed.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Whereas maybe if it was clearly decided and agreed up front, like, these are the days, let's say Christmas, we're going to be here, but on New Year's Eve, we're going to spend it there. Then, you know what I mean? Like, then I feel like this burning coat might have been reduced. So I feel oftentimes, and it's difficult. This is not, I mean, nobody really gets this right.
There's no handbook
because
about
it's
how
so
to
difficult
deal
for the
with
two
in-laws.
individuals in the middle are the ones that obviously have to be the messengers. Each individual knows their own side best, right?
Exactly.
They know how they think and what's normal and blah, 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 all these things, right?
Yeah.
And they only know through the partner a little bit how the other side thinks. And the two have to kind of be the middle man and woman to communicate and try and get things right. So it's very, very difficult to do this, of course, don't get me wrong. But if there's anything that I know from our experience, like communicating between the couple here and being as clear and open as possible, I think is absolutely, that's the only way to deal and sort out these kind of things,
Okay, so I agree. Communication is only one aspect, of course. So state it, encourage your partner to join your family traditions and whatnot. But I think going beyond that is also the expectation of certain family, whether it's one side of the family or both sides, not acknowledging that your child is now making a family of their own, right? It goes beyond the communication of telling your partner to join your family for that one time or for that tradition that you're used to.
Yeah.
That's between you and your partner.
Yeah.
On the other hand, fundamentally, is some parents or one side of the family refusing to acknowledge that, well, that tradition that you're so used to might change because your son or daughter is getting married to another person. And not only will that girl's family have their own tradition, but also both of you as a couple might decide to have traditions that don't have anything to do with either side of the family.
I mean, was that the case here? Like, were they instead, like, was the issue that they were spending time together on their own? Or...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So even the son wasn't then at the actual family gathering?
No, yeah, the son wasn't there
okay.
at the family gathering.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
And she wasn't at a family gathering either. Both of them were doing their own thing.
Okay, fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can argue that maybe it's too early to get into your own tradition since you're not even engaged or married. But if we bring that in terms of relatability of like actually married couples who oftentimes have in-law issues, like, sorry, I just got back from Nigeria. There was not one friend I met that was not having in-law issues. Specifically, mother-in-law issues. Like, I don't know what it is. I think the only person I know that has a perfect mother-daughter-in-law situation is my twin sister. Yeah, she just gets on 100% with her mother-in-law, which is great. I'm not putting myself in the same category. I'm referring to my twin sister specifically because she's married to someone from the same tribe, the same culture, they speak the same language, and she gets on with her mother-in-law. That is very rare. For me, there is the cultural difference to begin with. So there is peace, but it's not like we're close or we're best friends, because there is a lot of like, you know,
it's also, I think it's also about expectations, you know. I mean, I guess the question also, is it fair to expect or even think you're going to be best friends with your parents? Or should that even be the goal? You know, like, so I think sometimes on both sides, you know, from the parents, I think, parents-in-law, you know, to think now if maybe this new son-in-law comes along, or daughter-in-law, whatever, right? Like, they're going to be like another child to me or something. I mean, there's this sort of romantic idea maybe behind this, and for maybe individuals to think, oh, I'm going to try to be best friends with my father-in-law, we're all going to get along well, you know, like, I mean, I'm personally, I wasn't, and I'm not like really drawn to any particular picture in my head of like what it should be. You know, that's when also when you can get less disappointed.
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
you're
of course, look, don't get me wrong. Of course, bottom, like the baseline is, of course, I don't want a negative relationship. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? Like, that, of course, would stand out to me and I would be disappointed. Like, you know, if there was a really actively sort of negative or like, you know, that, of course, is different. But in terms of like upwards, from neutral up to like amazing, like, look, there's no expectation and whatever happens. Like, you know, we respect each other and, you know, everybody has their own experience. So I feel sometimes maybe people, you know, go in like with this too romantic or idea, and then of course then can get disappointed, which then can lead to resentment or a little bit like, oh, but I thought it was going to be this way, or you're not behaving the way I wanted it, or I don't know, whatever. Like, just that's, I think, one thing, you know, that is very important to just.
Yeah, but I think for me, I would say from stories that I've heard about mothers-in-law, right? I think particularly worse for mothers whose sons have gotten married. So feel free to drop a comment if you can relate to this. But I've actually heard that those are the most overbearing. Because, I mean, you know the way they say that boys are...
Mother's girls or mother's boys and then daddy's girls.
Daddy's girls and mommy's boys.
Yeah.
So I suppose the general rule of thumb is like boys are in love with their mothers.
Of course, why wouldn't we?
Until they meet a woman. So I think that's the point that mothers stop comprehending. They fail to realize, well, it's going to be like this until they meet the love of their life.
It's an adjustment.
But hold on. But yeah, you're right.
I think it's an adjustment
period. You're right. But sometimes I feel like some of these mothers fail to realize, well, you cannot be a queen in your house and expect to be a queen in another person's house.
Of course.
And listen, I'm saying this with a pinch of salt because I'm a mom to 2 boys. And sometimes hearing all these stories terrifies me.
Happen.
Like hearing all these stories from the daughters-in-law about what a devilish mother-in-law they have married to.
You know what? This video will be replayed to you in about 20 years' time and say, Mommy, this is what you said back in 2020.
No,
and now you're behaving the exact same way.
Yeah, I'm actually saying this to hold myself accountable to not be that mother who doesn't realize when to just back off.
Yeah.
Literally. Like, some mothers-in-law need to back up.
But one really interesting thing that I have to say is super, I think it's very interesting and almost cute in a way to observe. My experience of, in our own situation, of course, but also with other friends, and as Adanna said, some stories we've heard, whatever you know of your parents growing up, and it really doesn't matter whether it's sort of on the man's or the woman's side, right? But there's a side of your parents that you do not know until you get married. I feel there's a side of parents, that, I mean, not minor, not like they're changing completely. Don't get me wrong, absolutely not. But there are a couple of things I think that, as you said, just intrinsically kind of change or suddenly pop up, right? In terms of behavior or things that are just never there until they hear suddenly my son or my daughter, yes, they're getting married now, that's their life now, then they start having families, they, suddenly, I don't know, call us less or we see them less. There's something, and I'm not, honestly, I am the last person, if anything I've learned in the first 4 years of having kids as well in our own family, right? I'm the last person since then, but I also believe before that, to judge people or parents because of that. Because, as you said now yourself, with now being a mom of sons yourself and kind of only starting to imagine how that might be, we cannot put ourselves in those shoes, what it means that having raised a child for 20 odd years, done everything for them. We've only raised our kids for 4 years, Kian, right? Our first one. So we've been parents for 4 years now, right? And already you can sit down sometimes and say man, all the stuff in those 4 years, we do everything for this boy. And he's only 4. We haven't even done a lot. We haven't, there's still a lot of things we haven't done for him, right? And already some of you are man, I hope you remember in the future, everything we're doing for you. So imagine now this after 18, 19, 20, 25 years, right? When you've got them you put them through school, you've set them up for the future, you've done everything, hopefully, and this is our goal, of course, every dream and wish they've come to you with, you've made happen. You've set them up with everything. This is the only goal of if you're a parent, right? Yeah, to set your kids up for life. And if you have a genuine feeling you've done your job well, nobody can relate to that until you're in the position yourself. If there's anything I've learned, of kind of suddenly understanding my parents ever since I've become a parent, it's no, however I judge my parents or any other parents for that matter on this, no, you cannot relate until you've actually raised a kid for 20 odd years, So, I mean, it's not excusing that behavior, example of our friends that is still not right. You know what I mean? But there's just something that understandably parents display sometimes when they realize their kids are kind of starting their own thing, really now for real. Yeah. That it's kind of okay, I cut them some slack on those things,
Okay, you see, so my thing, we had this conversation. My thing is, so what you've said actually has gotten me very emotional because I'm a parent. I mean, we are parents, right? So to think about all we've done so far in 4 years,
and we haven't done much.
We've not even done that. They've not gone to high school. We've not gone through anything.
College,
they've not gotten into major trouble.
Heartbreaks.
They've not gotten into heartbreaks. Yeah. So to think about that, and then to think that they're starting the family, and the feeling of losing them. Can be very emotional. While I understand that, okay, your parents and the family that you knew before we joined ourselves as a family only ever happened because two people got together. Completely. The same with my own family, right? So, as a mom, and this is me holding myself accountable in 25 years, to know when to let go. And letting go doesn't mean leave them forever. You're not part of their lives. You will be part of their lives, but almost to respect that son of yours is now starting a family and starting the journey which they've been on
but I think it's so difficult decades. In the moment that it's just, that's why I said earlier, it's a transition that is required. I don't think very few, if any at all, kind of parents or so get this right within, let's say, a couple of months of the couple meeting, right? I mean, no parents, if you really had this sort of fairly close relation with your kid, if you really put in the effort and you genuinely feel I've done everything I can and you had a good relationship, nobody can tell me like within just a few months like, yeah, sure, whatever, like, you know, like I accept now if you don't want to see us at Christmas anymore, just like that. That's why I think it takes time. Parents know that in theory. If you'd ask them, I'm sure most parents know that. Like, look, you guys got together at some point, and you know, like, if it wasn't for your own parents to let you guys go, then we wouldn't be here now. So
exactly.
You know, so they know this in theory, I'm sure.
Okay, but in practice, it's harder.
Doing it really in practice, like every time you see that, there's all these emotions, all the Christmases you spend together, all the things you've done for Christmas to make it as, you know, amazing as possible for your kids and stuff. I'm just imagining it, right? All I'm saying is, there are, of course, boundaries, and there are ways where there are things that you as the couple in those moments, like in our example as well, where, you know, they have to just, you have to take steps and be kind of also set your own boundaries.
Yeah.
But I think that there are levels, and there is a bit of understanding of like, okay, look, we need to understand where they're coming from. In this case, again, they're only just dating. It's even a bit different to when you're married and have your own family, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, though, right? There's you have to be also realistic about that. You're only dating, you know, so you can't play around like, no, my wife and I are...
No, he's expressed interest in marrying her.
Well, but you know, also, especially in that culture, that means nothing. Until there's an actual ring on the finger, and until there's actually been some sort of negotiation.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can, culturally speaking.
Yeah.
Maybe in Germany it would mean actually something, but you know that until you actually put the ring on that finger, you might as well not have said anything.
Yeah, okay.
In a way. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but
okay.
You get my point.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
But I agree. I think it's just knowing, I mean, because what you've described of suddenly realizing, well, we're not going to spend Christmas together, that's the emotional, cute aspect.
Sure.
But most mother-in-law, daughter-in-law drama is not cute. It's literally, I want to yank your wig out.
Okay, but hold on, but that's a bit more worst case scenario. But these things come out because of the original, reason for those. Like with this family, the reason maybe the parents get upset is because of this. Well, but we've always spent Christmas together.
Okay, but let me tell you, there is a difference in expressing that emotion. It comes across as cute. So, for example, if you express, "Oh, guys, I really actually miss spending Christmas with you," or I'm telling you, like, it will make things a lot easier or more relatable than being very mean about it or trying to be invasive or like nosy or...
No, I agree.
It's just like, no, you cannot. This is me generalizing like all the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law drama that I hear.
Yeah.
It's mostly 8 out of 10% is usually the mothers of the boys not respecting the new queen in her son's life.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like with also the transition, right? They also have to find their own boundaries. Don't get me wrong. Like, you know, it's a give and take. That's what I'm saying. Of course, the couple has to be also like, you know, kind of find their way of slowly moving the boundaries. That's how I would describe it, right? Again, you're dating, very early stage. You know, be careful with those boundaries, otherwise you ruin any future relationship. But ultimately, you slowly over time move the boundaries or set boundaries. You know. The way you want it, you know.
And okay,
that's how I would say.
Do you know what? So I'll just tell you the advice I had given this friend of mine when she called. I said, listen, maybe you can tell your mother this, right? Generally, unless there is already like tension going on or God knows what, generally, when a woman gets married to a man, I am speaking from experience here, you going with the mindset of, I will love the living daylight out of my mother-in-law or my father-in-law or my sister-in-law or my brother-in-law. Like generally a woman who truly loves a man marries him with the intention of, I will love your family.
Oh, that's nice.
The problem starts at the point where this mother-in-law is refusing to let go. Because usually, like most of the drama, and please guys, don't get me wrong, this is not a personal experience. This is stories, like multiple stories of friends who are married, okay? The problem is usually between mother-daughter-in-law. Like the fathers-in-law, for some reason, they're so chill. Like they don't have any problem
different when it comes to their daughters, you see? Now let's talk about relationship between... No, of course, but like...
relate to that.
So it's equal, it's different, of course, difference. You know, I think for the boys it would be more with the dads. And so I think it's a normal thing that the tension or the more difficult relationship is usually with the same sex. So meaning for the woman, with the mother-in-law, for the husband or man, the father-in-law, which I think is completely normal.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. But since I can't relate to either of that, and I'm just drawing up experiences or stories that I've heard, is usually that where you don't then realize, well, treat this new woman or this new addition to the family with love, with respect, include her, or discuss things like differences in opinion. I think that there's room to adjust, but oftentimes, obviously, because this woman who has raised this boy for multiple decades, she thinks, well, this is my son. It's always like you trying to enforce your ideas on their new family.
Absolutely,
that doesn't work. And essentially, I mean, if this is something you can relate to or someone, essentially, this is my prediction, is that does not work, because unless the said son is in love with someone else, if he's in love with his wife, he's definitely not going to condone you treating his wife badly. And that's something I had told a friend of mine to tell her parents, right? Like, if you decide to treat his girlfriend with cold shoulders and be mean to her XYZ, you are going to ultimately annoy your son. They're both together going to pull even further away from the family. And let's just say there are grandchildren involved. That's not going to do you as the parent-in-law any favors, right?
I mean, that 100%. I mean, that's obviously worst case scenario. I think there are many kind of iterations that were normally kind of plays out in sort of between those, let's say, before that necessarily extreme case. No, but I think it is, yes, oftentimes, of course, you hear those stories because you would normally hear them from your peers here who are in the position of the actual kind of, let's say, new woman who arrives at the family.
Yeah, exactly.
I am telling you right now, I have enough wisdom already in my life by now.
Oh, okay.
From everything, from seeing what my parents taught me, and always as a young person, I don't believe you. By the time you get to that age, you're like, oh, flip, they're right. By the time we will get to that age, we will be talking to all our friends at the time, and everybody will be on the other side as the new mother-in-law or father-in-law, bitching about all these new young kids who come in, don't know how to handle.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'm honestly, I'm not just trying to be here like smart or cliche or something. Generally, if everything I've so far had to realize when I grew older, like, okay, my parents, or any parent, by the way, for that matter, but I just grew up with my own parents, so that's all, But I know from other adults who have told me to, there is a reason often. Like, there's a lot of true things people tell you that are older than you, that when you get to that age, or at least close to that age, you realize, 80% of that I can kind of see now and they were right. Do you get my point? So my point here is, I also believe there are equally amount of young people, whether men or women, by the way, it doesn't matter. Whether it's like, I could put myself in the shoe, maybe you reaching, then there's a father-in-law that you kind of think like, who are you? Like, I'm man enough. Like, why are you challenging? Like, I'm the man of the house now, and all this whatever guys get on about. No, there needs to be an equal, I think, amount of understanding where parents are coming from. And if you can't put yourself in the shoe of like, well, how does that actually feel? Like, you've been with these kids for 25 years or so, raised them, you're the one who taught them everything until that point, right? And sometimes within a few months of a relationship, you get the feeling like that other person came in now and like literally maybe they have a perception, changed my daughter now or son, or they're taking them away from me after like, are you like, 25 years, do you understand what we've done for our child? And within 6 months, you believe, you idiot, come in here now and believe you can, what I mean? Like, I'm also exaggerating now a little bit, but it's just sometimes good to put yourself a little bit in that position. Nobody is completely right or completely wrong here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to side with anybody per se.
But this is you almost trying to fit into your parents' shoes.
Any parents' shoes.
No, the reason why I'm trying to bring in our example. Of course, this negative situation is not happening with us, but like, for example, just so that you relate to what I'm saying. If I joined your family and at the time that I joined, your mom was so horrible to me, how would that make you feel?
Of course.
Irrespective of whether she's in the background thinking she's raised you for 25 years. How would that make you feel? That we are trying to start a family.
My point is, of course, it's not about being horrible. Of course, this is the extreme. That's always easy to argue. Of course, nobody would say, well, you have to understand if she's really horrible to one. Okay. That's extreme. Okay. Of course not. That should not happen. You know, like literally, like, I don't know, disrespecting or completely excluding, not talking. But these are worst case scenarios. These are easy examples. Okay. Nobody, even I would not agree, of course, that again, 99% of cases, I think, or 90% are usually somewhere in between. I think to kind of summarize this a little bit, it does obviously require, and this is, I think, does come from very, very personal experience. Well, it does require, of course, also very close working together, let's say, of the couple, right? I mean, I'm not saying we always get it right, or either of us, or myself or whatever. But I think that's what it comes down to, right? At the end of the day, if somebody has the feeling they're kind of fighting one of the in-laws or something, and then doesn't have the kind of at least understanding and support from their partner, I think that's the worst. That's when it really kind of pains and fails. But at least if you can work together on this, you're like, okay, look, I get you, and let's walk this through, or like, to work on this, I'll support you here, I'll help you. You know what I mean? I keep you away from that, or I don't know. I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
I was going to say that, well, we can't relate to in-law drama because thankfully none of our parents live in the same country as us.
And they don't really, I mean, that's just to kind of...
I don't know. Sometimes I think like,
but that's fine.
When it comes to family, I think, I wish like, our families lived in the same city, it would help us and stuff. But sometimes when I hear all these in-law dramas,
maybe it's better that
I'm
way.
just thinking like, do you know what? We're good not living with any parents around us.
Maybe that's good.
Maybe that's a good thing to kind of maintain that kind of like, I haven't seen you guys in a while, and I will love you up in the time that I see you.
There's some benefits. You just have to see the benefits and everything.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. But anyway, to summarize, if you have experienced any in-law drama, or you can relate to what we've talked about, or you have any tips or advice for people who might be trying to merge a family. Exactly. Yeah. If you have any tips for like the best way to deal with the in-laws, definitely share, because I know that a lot of people read the comments and they can learn a thing or two.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We appreciate, of course, all of your feedback and all of your comments. So please do keep them coming. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of
To Navigate. This was us screaming that got coupled up, and now like all of a sudden.
I know, we're still getting this right. But anyway, look, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Please do like the video, do share it if you feel like it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. And then if you have any thoughts on this video or for our next video, do leave the comment down below in the comment section. Thank you guys, and we will see you. We shall see you next week.
Bye. Bye.